Hello Sharks, I am Jonathan Little for PokerNews.com. If you want some poker news, check out PokerNews.com. They have literally all of it. Today we're going to be going over a hand from Lex O Poker. He is a poker video blogger who mostly plays medium stakes games around Florida. And today he decided to play a little bit higher. We're going to play 10, 25, no limit hold'em cash games. Make sure you check out Lex O Poker's video blog. We'll put a link to it in the description below on YouTube. Make sure you go there, click like, click subscribe, show them some love. And to be fair, I appreciate all of the poker video bloggers out there. Let them know that you appreciate their work. It takes a lot of work to upload content to YouTube. It's not just as easy as go to the casino, play some hands, go home, post the content. It actually takes a lot of work, and I immensely respect and appreciate all the work they do to better and improve and grow the poker world. So if you have a favorite video blogger out there, give them a shout out. Let them know you appreciate them. Let's take a look at this hand from Lex O Poker.
Next hand we're going to go over here, we have 9-10 of hearts from early position. Under the gun, we raised to $75. Next to act, the same player who raised us to $500 and then shoved all in for $8,000 calls. So we're going heads up here to a flop of 10-7-4, all spades.
Okay, Lex O Poker, under the gun. It looks like this was from a little while ago where they were still playing with plexiglass, so maybe it was like 6 or 7-handed. That is relevant. If you're under the gun 10-handed, it's very different than if you're under the gun 7-handed, right? Anyway, re-raise early position, opponent on our left calls. Lex O goes through a bit of information that if you watch the previous video blog, you would know. The opponent on the left was a little bit battly. They get in there, they're willing to mix it up, as they very often will in the medium and high stakes games. It's important to realize, if you are moving from the middle stakes up to the high stakes games, very often the bad players at the high stakes games play differently than the bad players at the medium stakes games. In the medium stakes games, often the players just play like a little bit too tight and passive, whereas in the higher stakes games, often they're a little bit too bluffy and call happy. Not that I have no clue who the opponent in this hand is. Maybe they're very good. I don't know. But it's important to realize that the skills needed to massively exploit the players at small stakes are different than the skills required to exploit the players at medium stakes. And they're also different from the skills required to exploit the players in the big stakes. So make sure you keep that in mind as you are moving up. Anyway, flop comes. 10-7-4, all spades. We have the top pair with 10-9 of hearts.
I can have all the overpairs on this board, but my opponent can also have all the sets, pocket 10s, pocket 7s, pocket 4s. He can also have a lot of flushes that he's calling my under the gun raise from, all the suited Broadway cards as well. So we check, trying to pot control here with our top pair, 9 kicker. He ends up putting in a bet of $75. Can't do anything here but check call.
Whew, Lex O Poker talks faster than me. I thought I was the person that spoke the fastest in the poker space, but apparently not. Lex O Poker has me beat. Shout out to you for that. That's a difficult thing to do. Okay. We have top pair out of position, but the board is 3 spades. I think it's a perfectly fine spot to go for a bet if you feel inclined, because you have a lot of strong made hands that want to value bet, like flushes, right? That said, from out of position, if you are trying to play good, fundamentally sound poker, you should be checking sometimes with everything. We discussed this thoroughly at my training site, pokercoaching.com, where when you're out of position and your opponent plays reasonable ranges, you should be doing a lot of checking because you usually don't have much of an advantage. When you don't have the range advantage and you're out of position, you have to check a lot. So that's what we do. The opponent bets 75, and this is, like Lex O Poker says, a very, very easy call, and we're just trying to get to the showdown cheaply.
Turn card is 8 of hearts, not the worst or the best card for us. We pick up a straight draw, but our opponent can have a hand like pocket 8s that he bet on the flop for protection. Now he turned a set, but that's pretty hard to do. We check it over to him. He thinks for a little bit of time and ends up checking it back, so I feel really good about my hand now. I think he maybe hit the 8 here with like 8-9 or possibly 7-8. I think he would continue to bluff if he did have the ace of spades or the king of spades, so I'm feeling pretty good about our hand. Probably he has a hand that has showdown value now. The river comes off the...
Woo! A lot of information there. All right. Let me rewind it just a bit so we have the board on the board so we know what's going on. All right. 10, 7, 4, 8. Lex O Poker says he thinks he probably has the best hand. And I generally agree, but some people will check back here with stuff like ace 10, king 10, queen 10, jack 10. Some people will even like get tricky and check back the nut flush to try to, induce you to do something silly on the river. Lex O Poker mentions he probably has some 8s. I don't think the opponent's going to have a lot of 8s. Notice he can't... He doesn't... Like, 9-8 of spades beats you. So he has 9-8 of diamonds, 9-8 of clubs. Like, I guess so. But you know, it's not that likely. It's 2 combinations, right? So I think in this spot, we're going to be looking at a lot of hands like a 10 going for pot control, like same thing you're roughly doing. And then also hands like 9s, maybe hands like 6s and 5s, 6s or 5s, right? Not like 6-5, but 6s or 5s. Maybe hands like 7-6 that decided to bet the flop. And then also a lot of hands like ace 9, ace jack, ace queen with a spade, king queen, king jack with a spade, maybe queen jack, although that probably bets the turn. It's important to realize that in this spot, when you're playing live cash games, especially when you're moving up to different stakes games, you have to be very careful with presuming you know what the opponent is doing. Because quite often you just don't know. I mean, like I usually presume I don't know what the opponent's doing because I don't know who this player is. So you got to be careful with ideas like he checked back the turn, therefore he must have an 8, right? Because it just doesn't necessarily work like that. And I'm not saying that's what Lex O Poker is doing here, but quite often a lot of people will try to very, very, very specifically narrow the opponent's range. Whereas I'm just trying to like weight some of the hands slightly more or less depending on what happens. Like right here, if the opponent shows up with king, queen of spades, yeah, I'd be surprised, but I'm not going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. It's like, yeah, sure. Decided to get tricky and check it back, right? Sure. If he shows up with a set, say he had pocket 4s, sure, maybe he got scared. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. So in this scenario, I'm not narrowing the opponent's range all that much. I mean, I'm narrowing it some, of course, but I'm not thinking they can't have ace 10, for example.
About our hand, probably he has a hand that has showdown value now. The river comes off the queen of diamonds. This queen should really not be helping him unless he has queen 10 of clubs, which is the only suited queen 10 available. He probably is going to...
Think back to that range I just gave the opponent. Ace, queen, king, queen, jack. Maybe queen 9 if they decided to play it this way. Again, does the opponent have queen 9 offsuit preflop? I don't know. I don't know who the opponent is, right? They probably don't, but hey, you never know. In Florida, they get out of line every once in a while and splash around.
Be betting that small on the turn as well. I can have a hand like ace queen, king queen with a spade in it that I would be check calling with on the flop. So we decide to check it over to him, assuming it's going to go check check a lot of the time here, and we're going to win. If he does bet, we could possibly check call or check fold. He thinks for a little bit of time and puts in a bet. He ends up betting $225. So
All right. We check the river. 10, 7, 4, all spades, 8 of hearts, queen of diamonds. We have 10, 9 of hearts for middle pair, bad kicker. We check. The opponent bets 2/3 pot. What are we doing? I want you to take a second and think about this and write what you would do in the comment section below against a presumably battling-ish player, but we don't really know. Would you fold? Would you call? Or would you get devious and put in the raise? And if you do raise, are you going to make it 3 times our raise to $700, or are you going to make it more like 5 times our raise to $1,200? We are playing $5,000 deep, so we're super deep stacked here. Pause the video and write what you would do in the comment section below. All right, did you do it? Good. Going through this active learning process is going to go a long way to helping you improve your poker skills. If you want to watch content, sit back, have a beer, and pass out on the couch, you may be entertained, but you're probably not going to get all that much better at poker, and it's my job to help you get better at poker. If you want to learn more, check out pokercoaching.com/free. We have all sorts of free content there for you to help you improve your poker skills. 10-9 offsuit here. I think it's just a fold. It's annoying, but I think you just need to fold. I think the opponent has more queens in their range than Lex O Poker thinks they have, because I would not be shocked to see ace queen, king queen, queen jack, maybe even like queen 9 of diamonds that decided to check it back on the turn. Maybe if the opponent's loose, they could even have a hand like queen 10 that would play it this way. It is worth noting as well, the opponent didn't bet like too big, so they could certainly have a hand like ace 10 that's going for value, or king 10 that's going for value. Maybe weird pocket jacks that decided to check it back on the turn that's going for value. As the opponent's value range gets wider and wider, you should be more inclined to just generally fold. There is the other option of raising. And the only time raising makes sense is if a lot of Lex O Poker's assumptions are correct. If the opponent has literally no flushes in their range and literally no sets in their range, and the best hand they can have is queen 10 here, which is unlikely because we block it, then will they fold to a raise? In the small stakes games and the medium stakes games, A lot of people will fold to a raise here. A strong exploit against players who are a little bit too weak and passive, like I mentioned at the top of the show here, is to be very aggressive in spots where you know they have a whole lot of one pair type hands. Because they'll just fold. They'll think, well, guess you had the flush and you trapped me. You got me, I fold. So if you check raise here big to like $1,200, they'll take their cards, be annoyed, and throw them in the muck. Even with a hand as good as like king, queen. But the high stakes battling players will not. If you give them a queen here with a spade, a blocker, to the flush, they're going to call you every time for any reasonable amount, especially if they are generally loose and battly. So this is a spot where if I knew the opponent's range was very capped at like one pair, would I go for a raise? I probably just wouldn't. Like, I just wouldn't. That said, maybe it becomes a call because then there's a lot of bluffs potentially in their range and they may not even value bet some one pairs. But I think this is just a fold in general because the opponent could have some nut hands. It's also worth noting that Lex O Poker check the flop, check called, check the turn, check the river. Are people actually doing that with good flushes? I mean, maybe Lex O Poker does, but I think a lot of people who are a little battly, like I gotta presume the opponent is due to the initial reads, those players are not going to think you're going to check out of position 3 times with a flush. They're just not going to expect that to happen. So when you do check raise, the alarm bells of suspicion should be going off in their head. We have some graphics for alarm bells of suspicion. They probably sound different than regular alarm bells. And if the alarm bells of suspicion are going off, then they're going to call a lot. So anyway, I would just fold here.
So kind of an odd sizing here. Given the action, my opponent's range is capped. And what I mean by that is he can never have pocket 10s, pocket 7s, pocket 4s, pocket 8s. He can never have a flush or even a straight because he'd always be betting those on the turn.
Before we move forward, goes back to my point I made before. I basically never use the idea or the line in my brain of my opponent can never have the flush and never have the sets. Because sometimes they do. I don't know who this random player is in a game up that who's playing, like he's playing a bigger game than I'm used to. I don't know how this person's thinking, right? Like if I was in Lex O Poker's shoes here, I would not presume I know what the opponents are doing. Because I just don't. I just don't, right? You need a big sample on particular opponents before you can like pretty confidently say they can't have a flush here, they can't have a set here, because you can get surprised. Sometimes. Sometimes not. Who knows? But you got to be careful with I always know something or my opponent always does this because you just don't know.
So now when he bets on the river, he's basically saying he has a hand like queen jack, king queen, or ace queen with a spade in it.
I mostly agree with that.
The best hand he could possibly have would be queen 10 of clubs. So I can't really call this bet. I can basically fold and he'll win a lot of the time. Or I could turn my hand into a bluff. Given the fact that he's capped to basically only one pair, I can put a lot of pressure on those hands. So I raise it up to $1,200 here, going for the triple check, check raise, bluff on the river, $1,000 more going over to him.
I like Lex O Poker's size. If you're going to check raise here, and we're trying to get him off of a literal queen, which is what we're trying to do, or a better 10, you got to go big. If you went 700 here, you messed up. If that was a quiz on pokercoaching.com, it would get like 0 points. To be fair, I'm not sure I love this bluff though, because like I said, battling players just don't find big folds, at least in my experience. One thing I will note here is that Lex O Poker usually plays slightly smaller games than this. And he's moving up. He's pushing the boundaries, probably playing in a game that's pretty good. And he's not playing afraid. A lot of people, when they take a shot, they inevitably play weak and tight. And if you play weak and tight when you're taking a shot, you are going to get crushed. But Lex O Poker's in there battling, and win or lose his hand, props for that.
We are just trying to put max pressure on his one pair of hands, basically representing a flop flush or possibly a hand like queen 10 of clubs as well. We can also have a hand like aces that we're going for value here on the river. He thinks for a while, obviously hoping for a fold. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. He makes the call. We show the 10, 9 of hearts. He shows us ace queen with the queen of spades. So bad bluff, I guess, from us, but I don't really mind it. Trying to put pressure on his hands. We definitely ranged him right, putting him on one pair. Unfortunately, he just couldn't fold that hand.
Yeah, we ranged him right, but it's important to note the difference in player types as you move up in stakes. Like I said, as you move up to higher and higher stakes games, the opponents are going to be fighting harder and harder and harder. So in that spot, if I did want to have a bluff, I think I would need to have a spade to block some of their calls, right? Because I think a lot of their calls are going to be one pair hands with a spade. So if we have like Jack of Spades 10 or King of Spades 10, I think that would be a little bit more viable in that scenario. And also you block some random flushes that they could have. So I think that's probably a slightly better bluff. But hey, if you have the read that my opponent's going to value bet too thin on the river and then fold to aggression, I love the play. And, you know, for all I know, maybe that was actually the read and it just didn't work out this time. If you want to learn more about bluffing, if you think the bluff on the river with that middle pair is just absurd and nonsensical, I actually don't think it's all that nonsensical. I think it's actually a reasonable thought process. I have a bluffing quiz for you. Check it out at pokercoaching.com/bluffing quiz to make sure you're actually bluffing. If you don't bluff, I can guarantee you, you are leaving money on the table. Even in the small stakes games where a lot of people like to call a lot, or even against overly aggressive opponents and battling opponents who don't like to fold in general, you will still find some spots to bluff. Make sure you take the quiz at pokercoaching.com/bluffing quiz to make sure you are not screwing up. That's going to be it for today. Thanks to Lex O Poker for this video. I appreciate it. It's a fun hand, fun battling hand. And I cannot give Lex O Poker enough props for like actually getting in here and battling and sharing it with the world, even when it doesn't work. That takes a lot of guts, so shout out to you. That's going to be it for today. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Click the like and subscribe buttons below. If you like more of this content, click the notification bell. Let me know in the comment section below. If you have a favorite poker video blogger who has some fun hands, leave me a timestamp in the comment section below with a link to the video. I'll get a hold of those video bloggers, see if they'll let me use their hands, and we will perhaps do that. So help me out. I want to make the content you want to consume, and you all know all the good hands, so help me out with that. Good luck in your games. Have a great, great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Hello. Do I have your attention? Good. You know I love to give away lots of free strategy advice here on my YouTube channel, so do me a quick favor. Can you click the subscribe button right here and right down here below? Thank you. See you in the next video.